Hello and welcome for a new video on the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. Today we will see verse 89, concluding a series about blocking the senses in darkness, closing the eyes, etc. First, let me read the verse in Sanskrit. Om yasya kasyendriyasyāpi vyāghātāc nirodhataḥ praviṣṭasyādvaye śūnye tatraivātmā prakāśate. And moreover, having through opposing, blocked any of the sense faculties, having blocked by closing any of the sense faculties, for the one who has entered in the non-dual void, who has entered or who has been entered by the non-dual void, there itself the self shines. There itself the self shines. So again, having blocked by closing, by causing to close the manifestation, stopping the manifestation by blocking any of the sense organs, for the one who enters the non-dual void, there itself the self shines. So the idea is that, as it is said in a famous quote in the Kathopanishad, conscious beings have their attention turned to the outside almost exclusively, and even when we are aware or focused on some thought, image, memory, feeling, this is also outside. This is also outside, that is not awareness, unaware of awareness. So this is outside. And some very few turn attention inward, self to self, into oneself, and enjoy the flavor of immortality, the nectar of what does not die. But most of us will turn outside. So the idea here, and in that series of verses we have seen in the previous videos, is to block that outward flow of attention, of energy, if you will. And by blocking one of the five senses, or all of them, in a kind of sensory deprivation, attention is forced to turn upon herself. Awareness is somehow forced to become aware of herself. And then the self, that is awareness, shines, prakāśate. So, vyāghātāc, bahya abhibhavaka-kritat. So by stopping by overwhelming the outside manifestations, nirodhataḥ, svarasodhat, prayatnikādvā advaye śūnye praviṣṭasya. So, and that blocking, this says here, the commentator says here, can be spontaneous just when you happen to find yourself in a dark room, for example, or voluntary. And then you enter in the non-dual void, that is, you become antarmukhapade nirodhasya. You take your stand in the state that is, whose face is turned inward, whose face is turned inward. Samanantarameva, immediately, just any time when one of the five senses is blocked, attention forcibly, necessarily, inevitably turns inside to herself, toward herself. Tatraivātmā prakāśate. And there itself the supreme consciousness shines. So vyāghātāc viruddha samuccayat. So when we prevent any of the five senses to go outside, then there is the non-dual void. Non-dual means that there is nothing outside it. And what is that non-dual void? It's awareness, it's consciousness, because there is nothing outside consciousness. Nothingness itself is nothing but an object in consciousness, because nothingness is opposed to thingness. So it's just a mental construction, it's just a choice, a vikalpa, built by excluding its opposite. But consciousness has no opposite. There is no unconsciousness outside of consciousness. Unconsciousness, unawareness itself is an object, is a construct within consciousness, a wave within the sea of consciousness, a reflection within the mirror of consciousness, an object within the space, a body, if you will, within the space of awareness. Though there is no thing or nothing outside consciousness, I am aware of that so-called outside of consciousness. So it's nothing but an act of consciousness. So it does not exist outside of consciousness. That is, it is nothing separate from awareness. It is nothing separate from the light that shines upon it and that allows me to say, oh, there is nothing there. Oh, I was unconscious then. Oh, but there is a world outside of consciousness. No, there is no world outside of consciousness. There is a world outside of my mind. There is a world outside of my imagination. There is a world outside of my body. But there is no world outside of consciousness. Content of consciousness, what I am aware of, has limitations. But consciousness herself has no limitations. That's the definition of awareness. That which has no limitation. That which has no opposite. That which cannot be excluded. That which cannot be lost. That out of which there is nothing. That has no outer reality. That has no second. That which is non-dual, advaya. That is the Sanskrit word used here. Advaya, non-dual, that which has nothing second to it. The commentator Ananda says, dvaya rahita, devoid of a second. There is nothing else but consciousness. There is nothing else but consciousness. But the mind, imagination, memory, reason, can't grasp it because they can grasp only what has limits. But in fact, the mind, memory, imagination are just forms of awareness. When they shine, when imagination imaginates, creates, builds images, when reasons, when memory remembers, it's just the one single awareness, realizing herself as that image, that memory, that feeling, that object. It's just one consciousness realizing herself, desiring herself, perceiving herself, thinking herself, judging herself as this and that. Thousand times, instant after instant. This is the flow of consciousness. Consciousness creativity. Because consciousness is creative. Consciousness is moving, just like a sea. A sea cannot be just fixed, or it would not be water. It would not be a sea. It moves more or less, but it moves always. So consciousness is movement. And so the goal here, the aim, cannot be to suppress movement, to suppress imagination, to suppress memory, to suppress the mind. It's rather to come back to our senses in a state of flow, in a state of fluid movement. So we do that here by taking advantage of the moments when naturally attention stops from going outside. When you try to remember something, when you try to find your words, when you try to recognize someone, when you try to achieve and you're on the verge of achieving, to reach the goal, all your energies are melting, are opening, are turning back upon themselves in a kind of unity where you're about to find, to reach, to conclude, to achieve, to succeed. Even in basic perceptions, you're trying to see what's there. Is it a man? Is it an animal, someone you know, or an object? You're trying to find a solution to a problem, trying to remember, to put a name on the face. In all those moments, attention expands and becomes awareness again. The wave recedes in the ocean and becomes the ocean again, so to speak. And so that is how we can take advantage of just ordinary experience, the natural flow, in order to what? To open more and more awareness, that is, to relax, to come back more and more to a state of awareness which is more fluid, more open, and feel more and more the bliss that is experience, in itself, naturally, without having to apply any complicated technique, but with a lot of attention, a lot of devotion, lots of love. The three being the same. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and have a good day, and see you for the next video.